Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Everywhere I turn, I'm in the news now. Why? I don't know. Just plowing ahead, baby. Could it be because I'm at war with the ruling class? Maybe. Not sure. Just doing what I always do. Trying to push the edge of the envelope for liberty and the Constitution. Now, you've probably heard today, I must confess, I haven't listened to a lot of talk radio today, although I want to thank Rush Limbaugh for his strong endorsement of my book, Sean Hannity for his strong endorsement of my book, and so many others over at the American Thinker and the American Spectator and Breitbart, and I can't remember everybody, which is a mistake. Human Events. Wonderful individuals. I want to thank all of you, and one day I will go through the list, name by name, CNS News, and so forth. But there will be pushback, and I'm fully prepared for it, and most of it will be emotional and nonsensical. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a question right now. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Pull back. I'm going to use this George Will column as a perfect example. George Will wrote another great column. They're either really, really good, and most of them are, or they're really bad. This is a really good one. In the Washington Compost, he says Obama's unconstitutional steps worse than Nixon's. Now listen to that title. Obama's unconstitutional steps worse than Nixon's. Nixon resigned from office. Obama will never resign from office. He'll never be impeached. He's an imperial president. Isn't that remarkable? And Will points out things that we've already pointed out, but he's very influential. He's a columnist. He's on the Sunday talk show on ABC. He's been around a long time. So let's read part of this. And keep something in mind now. I'm not reading it just to read it. I'm reading it as an example of something in a moment. He says President Obama's increasingly grandiose claims for presidential power are inversely proportional to a shriveling presidency. Desperation fuels arrogance as barely 200 days into the 1462 days of his second term, his pantry of excuses for failure is bare, his domestic agenda is non-existent, and his foreign policy of empty rhetorical deadlines and red lines is floundering. And at last week's news conference, he offered inconvenience as a justification for illegality. So Will is accusing him of illegality and unconstitutional steps. This is very important. Something that I've been talking about for a very long time, but that's not even the point. He's accusing him of unconstitutional steps and illegality. Those are high crimes and misdemeanors, ladies and gentlemen. Explaining his decision to unilaterally rewrite the Affordable Care Act, he said, I didn't simply choose to ignore the statutory requirement from beginning in 2014, the employer mandate, to provide employees with health care. No, this was in consultation with businesses. He added, this is Obama, in a normal political environment, it would have been easier for me to simply call up the speaker and say, you know what, this is a tweak that doesn't go to the essence of the law. Looks like there may be some better ways to do this. Let's make a technical change to the law. That would be the normal thing that I would prefer to do, but we're not in a normal atmosphere around here when it comes to Obamacare. We did have the executive authority to do so, and we did so. Quote, unquote, Obama. I was asked about this on Fox on the Neil Cavuto show, and I said it's flatly illegal, flatly unconstitutional, and many of us believe this. Serving as props in the scripted charade of White House news conferences, journalists did not ask the pertinent question. Where does the Constitution confer upon presidents the executive authority to ignore the separation of powers by revising laws? The question could have elicited an Obama brevity, because there is no such authority. Obama's explanation began with an irrelevancy. He consulted with businesses before disregarding his constitutional duty to, quote, take care that the laws be faithfully executed, unquote. That duty does not lapse when a president decides Washington's political environment is not normal. When was it normal? The 1850s, the 1950s? Washington has been the nation's capital for 213 years. Obama's been here less than 9. Even if he understood normal political environments here, the Constitution is not suspended when a president decides the environment is abnormal. Now, he has said that Obama's conduct is unconstitutional, illegal, and that he has suspended the Constitution for at least this purpose. George Will. He continues. Neither does the Constitution confer on presidents the power to rewrite laws if they decide that change is a tweak, not involving the law's essence. Anyway, the employer mandate is essential to Obamacare. It's not a tweak. 23 days before his news conference, the House voted 264 to 161 with 35 Democrats in the majority for the rule of law. That is, the Authority for Mandate Delay Act. It would have done lawfully what Obama did by ukase. He threatened to veto this use of legislation to alter a law. The White House called it unnecessary, presumably because he has an uncircumscribed executive authority to alter laws. Now, he quotes some Nixon and David Frost back and forth that's not particularly relevant to me. Then, Will says the following. Obama should be embarrassed that by ignoring the legal requirement concerning the employer mandate, he has validated critics who say Obamacare cannot be implemented as written. What does not embarrass him is his complicity in effectively rewriting the law for the financial advantage of self-dealing members of Congress and their staffs. Obamacare says members of Congress, annual salaries of $174,000 a year, and their staff, thousands making more than $100,000 a year, must participate in the law's insurance exchanges. It does not say that when this change goes into effect, the current federal subsidy for this affluent cohort, up to 75% of the premiums cost, perhaps $10,000 for families, should be unchanged. When Congress awakened to what it enacted, it panicked. If the president does it, it's legal? If the president does it, it's legal? Well, this is quite a charge here. Impeachable offenses. That the president's conduct is unconstitutional. That his conduct is illegal. That he has suspended the Constitution, at least with respect to these changes. Now, what are they going to do about it? Now that we know that this is a problem, and we've known it for a long time, this is just the latest example. The president serially violates the Constitution and conducts himself in an illegal way. What's George Will's proposal? What does he recommend? This is you can't make a more serious charge against a president than this. These are high crimes and misdemeanors. When a president knowingly and repeatedly breaks his oath, when a president knowingly and repeatedly commits illegal acts, when a president knowingly and repeatedly suspends the Constitution, what did Speaker Boehner say about this today? Nothing. What did Mitch McConnell say about this today? Nothing. What are the conservative think tanks around Washington saying about this today? Nothing. Nothing. Maybe they'll issue a white paper. Maybe they'll convene a meeting. Now, do you think electing more conservatives to Congress will stop this president? Or presidents like this? How so? There's only one thing in the Constitution that addresses a lawless president. And we're not allowed to, can't talk about it. Okay, I won't. What's the Supreme Court going to do about it? The Supreme Court has endorsed it in Obamacare. The Supreme Court has endorsed it when it comes to illegal immigration and Arizona's efforts to secure its citizens' safety. Well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do as soon as I return.
Mark Levin.
George Will, no less than George Will, says Obama's conduct is unconstitutional. He says it's illegal. He says he's suspending the Constitution. And I say he's been doing it. Now, what are we going to do about it? Nothing. Not a damn thing. And he's going to do more of it. The United States Supreme Court, in an outrageous decision, rewrote Obamacare to make it from unconstitutional to, in its view, constitutional. Change the wording and the meaning of the law. Change the wording and the meaning of the Constitution. A so-called conservative originalist justice. He did it. Now, what are we going to do about it? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The United States Congress keeps passing laws that are thousands and thousands of pages long, and they keep creating bureaucracies, departments, and agencies that are issuing thousands of laws every single year. What are we going to do about it? Nothing. Just elect more conservatives, they tell us. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we keep playing this game. We're finished. It's over. I've been collecting column after column, article after article, from conservatives, from pseudo-conservatives, from Republicans, who are saying that what's going on is outrageous, illegal, unconstitutional. And that's all they do. They keep saying it. From conservative and libertarian economists saying, we're going to hit a wall. This is unsustainable. You can't keep doing this. And what's their solution? Stop doing it. Well, great. They're not going to stop doing it. Articles, speeches, white papers. Folks, it's not enough when you're up against a juggernaut that knowingly and brazenly rejects constitutional republicanism to advance a utopian design which involves sucking the freedom out of the individual by a federal leviathan. I want you to think about your own lives, many of you who are touched by the federal government, whether in the workplace, whether at home, involving virtually anything you can look at. I mean, the question isn't what the government regulates. The question is what the government doesn't regulate. The question isn't what the government taxes. The question is what the government wants to take. We have mandates endlessly. We have banning of products and services endlessly. The federal government is in our school lunch program. The federal government determines what kind of paint you can use on your house, what kind of light bulb you can have. The federal government tells automobile companies how to design their automobiles, washing machine, dishwasher, dryer companies, how to develop their products. The federal government's now telling restaurants what kind of menus they can have and what's to be on the menu. The federal government is now collecting data on your personal lives, your health care, putting it into a national database. Your phone numbers and your phone calls, who you talk to, how long you're on the phone with them. People shrug their shoulders. What's the big deal? It's all a big deal. If you believe in a constitution, this is not a constitutional republic. It's transitioning into something else. When Obama says that he wants to fundamentally transform America, why don't we believe him? Why don't we believe him? Obama's just repeating in his own way, in his own words, what Franklin Roosevelt said on May 18, 1926, almost 100 years earlier, at a lecture at Milton Academy. Roosevelt, you see, lamented the limits of the Constitution on the federal government's power. He said, quote, measured by years, the actual control of human affairs is in the hands of conservatives for longer periods than in those of liberals or radicals. I am reading from my new book, The Liberty Amendments. He said, when the latter do come into power, that is liberals or radicals, they translate the constantly working leaven of progress into law or custom or use, but rarely obtain enough time and control to make further economic or social experiments. Our national danger is, he said, not that it may for 4 years or 8 years become liberal or even radical, but that it may suffer from too long a period of the do-nothing or reactionary standards. So what was FDR saying? He was saying, we cannot tolerate the limits of constitutional government. We cannot tolerate so long a periods out of elective office. We must create an autocratic society to overcome the transience of status electoral victories and interrupted rule. And that's what they've done. And that's what they're doing. I've got plenty more when I come back.
Versus left is right versus wrong. Call Mark at 877-381-3811.
I will respond this way to George Will and the endless, infinite columns and articles and speeches and debates about the fact of the nation's unconstitutional situation, with an excellent piece by John Hayward in Human Events today. He says, radio host Mark Levin's new book, The Liberty Amendments, Restoring the American Republic, is one of the most focused, accessible, and aggressive political books you'll ever find. Levin's thesis is that the balance of power between the three branches of the federal government, the states, and the American people has been distorted beyond the ability of conventional politics to repair. After all, if the power of the legislature has been diminished relative to the executive has dispersed its disproportionate power into unelected bureaucracies, and the states are increasingly powerless vassals of Washington, then there's no way for the people's representatives in Congress or state houses to draft laws that would correct the situation. The entire point of this century-long quest to centralize power was to remove it from the clumsy hands of foolish American citizens. It's being sarcastic. We are spectators to a game show in Washington. We might be able to vote a few of the contestants off the show, but we have no control over the rules of the game. Levin aims to change the rules of the game, or more properly, reset them, to restore the brilliant system put in place by America's founders. With the situation explained and his goals set forth in a few introductory pages, He executes the rest of his book with the planning and precision of a SEAL team taking an objective. Each of his proposed liberty amendments is laid out in a brief chapter that explains its importance, sources it to the writing of the Founding Fathers, and anticipates the more reasonable objections that would likely be raised. Little time is wasted on the unreasonable objections, for Levin does not intend to address an audience of the stupid, greedy, or hysterical. He also knows his statist adversaries are not interested in rationally discussing the death of the Leviathan they nourished for generations. This is Human Events, Ronald Reagan's favorite newspaper, John Hayward. A constitutional reset is necessary because the progressive project is a cascade of lost freedoms, designed so that each step is irreversible and every inch of ground taken by the state is claimed forever. The distribution of power to unelected bureaucrats is a key element of this process, and one of the Liberty Amendments sunsets all federal departments and agencies unless Congress reauthorizes them every 3 years, by majority vote. Every big-ticket executive regulation would be subjected to review by a joint congressional committee. This amendment would pull the plug on the unstoppable federal bureaucracy, forcing every department to perpetually justify its existence and terminating President Obama's beloved practice of circumventing Congress to legislate by decree. Another Liberty Amendment likewise reins in the judicial branch, setting term limits for Supreme Court justices and giving Congress the power to override Supreme Court opinions with a 3/5 vote without risk of a presidential veto. 3/5 of the state legislatures can also join forces to knock down a court decision. That's a recurring theme of the Liberty Amendments, the restoration of both congressional and state power. As Levin repeatedly reminded us, nothing worried the founders more than the rise of a despotic national executive, such as the one we now have. The original states never would have signed on to a federal government that turned them into puppets. There were strong logical arguments against these outcomes, which power-hungry progressives understood quite well back when they first set about overturning the constitutional order. Today's progressives, modern progressives, don't think they need to understand those arguments anymore because the foundation of the total state has been laid and the clock can never be turned back, as one of their favorite slogans has it. This should leave them at a severe intellectual disadvantage if the Liberty Amendments become a topic of national debate. Some of Levin's proposed amendments are intended to clarify language that already exists in the Constitution, such as the much-abused Commerce Clause, lately interpreted as a warrant for unlimited federal control of all human activity, although the founders most certainly did not intend it to be taken that way. Our language has changed over the centuries, always in a way that expands the left's desire for centralized control. The authors of the Constitution would find our current understanding of the word commerce to be utterly deranged. Indeed, they might even ask what the point of the revolution was if interstate commerce was to become a writ for powers beyond the wildest dreams of daft old King George. Two of the proposed Liberty Amendments are devastating blows against imperial federal power, making it easier for states to amend the Constitution and giving them a brief window of opportunity to strike down both congressional legislation and executive branch legislation. Levin also makes a compelling argument against the 17th Amendment, which provided for the direct election of U.S. senators. Senators were supposed to be instruments of the state legislatures, while the House of Representatives would be filled by popular vote. I have never read, he writes, a better explanation for why this was important and how it gave state governments a vitally needed hand in the crafting of federal legislation. This is John Hayward at Human Events. I've also seen no better case made for term limits on Congress, as Levin astutely points out that not only do Jurassic representatives for life distort the distribution of power in Congress, but they invest a great deal of our national energy and funding in maintaining their 85% plus reelection rate. surely some of those safe districts would merely replace retiring Party Drone A with new Party Drone B. But as it stands, far too many representatives discover they can most easily secure lifetime tenure by representing the Leviathan state instead of their constituents, tapping the federal treasury to purchase reliable voters. This is a review today in Human Events, Ronald Reagan's favorite paper, by John Hayward. He says the reason all these goals must be accomplished through constitutional amendment is that any other instrument of legislation or representation can be twisted to the purposes of the central state. Levin makes an irrefutable case that we long ago passed the point of no return for reforming our bloated, degenerate, dying federal government by winning a few elections. The people who rigged this system made certain to armor it against future dissent from unhappy voters. One man, one vote, one time, every step of the way, with each new progressive achievement promptly declared more immutable than the tattered old scrap of parchment kept under glass at the National Archives. Having studied the provisions for a constitutional convention, that is, a convention for proposing amendments, Levin is convinced that the high bar for state ratification of any proposed amendments will keep it from becoming a carnival of kooks. The kooks are winning anyway. What could they get by amending the Constitution that our eternal bureaucracy and despotic executive branch aren't giving them? One lost liberty at a time. He says if you want to bring the ship of state into dry dock instead of slightly adjusting its course, the Liberty Amendments provides an excellent set of schematics. Levin's strategy is the only way for the American people to have a say on all the things we've been told we don't get to vote on anymore. Reading this book will help you appreciate the terrible magnitude of what we have lost. And it will also have you appreciate the intractable nature of an arrogant system that dictates to us instead of representing us, appropriating the language of democracy to dignify what really amounts to quelling dissent against whatever the ruling class wants to do next. And he goes on, I'm a little red-faced to read this, and if you're not already a constitutional scholar Mark Levin's caliber, you might be surprised to learn just how accurately the supposedly out-of-touch and obsolete founders predicted everything that's happening today. While reading Chapter 8 of the Liberty Amendments, you'd think John Adams was taking daily delivery of the New York Times through a time warp. I suspect he and his peers would have little argument with Levin's recommendations. We will post this outstanding review, and there's so many of them, by John Hayward at Human Events, Mark Levin's Liberty Amendments. And yet, folks, I've been getting some dear friends sending me emails from people I know. Some who have been conservatives or have said they're conservatives. And they say things like, we need to just elect more conservatives to Congress. We need just to elect a conservative president. This'll fix it. They claim they support federalism. And yet, virtually every amendment I propose, and again, I'm not of an unassailable knowledge, I'm just saying these are my proposals, is based on federalism. But they fear federalism. They say they adore and revere the Constitution, but they don't, because the Constitution is being eviscerated. And so when we turn to the Constitution to save the Constitution under Article 5, which is exactly why the framers put it there, they tell us, don't do it. Something terrible might happen. Something terrible is happening. I just read George Will's column. I could read 50 more. 50 more. And I've addressed this in the Liberty Amendments already. And when we come back, those who are timid, those who are fearful, I want to address them. They seem to be more willing to accept as inevitable the fate that the statists have for us. which, let's make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, it's to turn us into subjects. They don't do this in secret. It's out in the open. They're philosophers and they're academics and they're experts and they're politicians. They're all out there talking about it. How you don't have a right to your property. You don't have a right to your income. How your rights have to be redistributed by the government. How whatever you have, you didn't earn. You can see elements of a police state here and there. If your eyes are open and you're looking around. Do you believe the federal government, in your heart of hearts, do you believe the federal government's going to reform itself? And on what basis? And how's it going to do it? Well, if not, then what do we do? If they're better ideas than winning an election here and there, then what are they? And if they're better ideas, are they based in the Constitution, as are the ideas that I'm arguing for? In recent weeks, my friends at the Tea Party Patriots announced their August Recess Toolkit at teapartytoolkit.com. That's teapartytoolkit.com. They've reported to me that thousands of Americans across the country have already downloaded the toolkit and are finding success in engaging with their legislators. So why haven't you taken advantage of this toolkit yet? The resources are invaluable. At teapartytoolkit.com, you'll find talking points, sample letters to the editor, how-to guides on how to host your very own town hall, and now you can even find a schedule congressional town halls in your area. Folks, this is important. With issues like Obamacare and amnesty and the out-of-control spending and the upcoming debt ceiling fight, your elected officials need to hear from you right now. Most Americans are with us on these issues, and we need to remind our elected officials that at every possible opportunity we can. Please take advantage of these important tools today. Go to teapartytoolkit.com right now to download your free toolkit. That's teapartytoolkit.com.
Mark Levin.
I am calling on conservative institutions like our friends at the Heritage Foundation, Jim DeMint, and many, many others. Now's the time. Now's the time. As I write in the Liberty Amendments in the last chapter, there will be those who insist sincerely that electing the right president in Congress and appointing the right justices is not only more practicable, but preferable to amending the Constitution. They will cling to a particular election or judicial decision as evidence of vibrant republicanism, diluted by short respites and interludes to escape the intellectual and practical reality of societal transformation. I am all for the election of candidates and the confirmation of justices who are faithful to the Constitution. Obviously, the amendment process does not preclude these efforts. But let us be honest with ourselves. Let us acknowledge the infrequency of these occurrences and the greater rarity of fidelity by these officials once ensconced in high office to constitutional boundaries. In fact, even the most virtuous and resourceful among them do not and cannot possess the aptitude and muscle to penetrate the daunting entrenchment and institutionalized apparatuses of the federal government. And the increasingly and significantly cloistered operations of the federal branches, the willful concealment of deliberations, the delegation of power to elusive and unaccountable bureaucracies, and the centralization and concentration of authority are all intended to evade the Constitution, confound the citizen, and suppress self-government. This is a systemic problem that is bigger than any single federal election or administration. Is it not? We have Democrats and Republicans as an example. Both saying Obamacare is the law of the land. That's that. Case closed. Over and out. No. There has to be another way. The ambiguous evidence reveals much of what the federal government does is unaffected by elections. And this is the consequence of the statists' design. Another dear friend of mine, whom you would know, he's very famous, he's in Hollywood, sends me an email today. He says, I loved your book. So which state will be the first? A little snarky. I said, which state will be the first? Don't we first need to lay down the predicate? Don't we first need to make the case to the American people? I would say this. Have we become so cynical, so defeatist, that we won't even engage in this debate? That we won't even start it? I don't know how we unravel a federal leviathan with its ubiquitous rules and laws. I don't know how we unravel a Supreme Court that operates in ways that the framers never intended. I don't know how we unravel a massive bureaucracy. So many departments and agencies, we can't name them. With so many people issuing rules and laws, we can't follow them. I don't know how we unravel a president who brazenly beats his chest about violating the Constitution. I don't know how we unravel a Congress that works in darkness, only to come into the light with 2,000-3,000 page laws that they pass in 2 or 3 days, except by returning to the Constitution, embracing the Constitution, and using the Constitution against them. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, my friends. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. If you are not on the Drudge Report homepage, go take a look. On the Drudge Report homepage, the most important homepage in America, quite frankly, go take a look. The center column. He has a way of summing things up like nobody else, quite frankly. He really does, and he puts it in one sentence. And what he says there is, Levin, feds must be stopped before America is lost. That kind of sums it up, doesn't it? Book shoots to #1 on Amazon, and that's thanks to you, by the way, my beloved audience. Let me do a little bit of administrative things, and we're going to move on here. Saturday is 2 days away. Saturday, I hope to see thousands of you at Book Review in Huntington, Long Island. I hope to meet each and every one of you who can get there, and I'll sign your book. And you'll help us spread the word, the Paul and Paulette Reveres. Sunday, this Sunday, the next day, I'll be at Bookends in Ridgewood, New Jersey, hopefully seeing thousands of more of you, meeting each one of you and signing your book so we can spread the word. Not this Saturday, but next Saturday, August 24th at Tyson's Corner Mall at Barnes & Noble in Virginia, Northern Virginia. I hope to see thousands and thousands of you as well. And I've picked these sites because they're comfortable, because these are nice places there that you can go, get something to eat, go to the restroom, what have you. So it can accommodate a lot of people. And those of you who've come before, you know, and I hope we'll see you again. And those of you who haven't, it's a meeting of American-loving citizens. like-minded people, concerned about the same thing and wanting to do the same thing. And I only do this every couple of years. I'm not on a book tour. I don't do a book tour. So I hope to meet many, many, many of you. And I see on Amazon.com right now, the book's 42% off. That's the highest discount yet. One other thing. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm going to be on Hannity on the Fox News Channel. And along with Sean, we're going to have a wonderful audience. And we're going to go through these things. And it's going to be extremely entertaining. I think it's going to be very interesting. If you have plans, just go ahead and TiVo it. We get into this issue and these matters, and a lot of people in the audience you're going to be familiar with. They're patriots. So I hope you'll take a look at that too. And then finally, if you go to the Mark Levin Show website, it's free. I don't charge membership fees. It's free. It's the best website in talk radio, in anywhere, any place. If you go to MarkLevinShow.com, you'll see all the news and information and other things on there. But we also have a page of the various reviews and comments on the Liberty Amendments. And I hope you'll join us on Mark Levin Show Facebook and Mark Levin Show Twitter, because I'm constantly posting things. Okay. Here's a piece in the Daily Caller. This is serious stuff. Piece in the Daily Caller. Obama skirts Congress, funds pre-K through Obamacare. So he's funding pre-K with the Obamacare program. With congressional Republicans refusing to finance an expensive universal preschool proposal, writes Robbie Soav, President Obama is seeking an alternative funding source, Obamacare. Universal pre-K is one of Obama's favorite big ideas, and one he has mentioned repeatedly in the past few months, but his proposal to bulk up federal and state pre-K programs by raising tobacco taxes is unlikely to pass the Republican House. So instead, Obama and Education Secretary Arne Duncan have turned to, quote-unquote, discretionary funding allocations in Race to the Top, a federal education grant to the states, and even Obamacare. A provision of Obamacare's health care law, the Affordable Care Act, sets aside money for both state and federal authorities to fund school readiness programs for at-risk youth, according to Politico. So they're going to tap into Obamacare, which you're funding with your taxes, to start full-time preschool programs subsidized by the federal government because Obama can't get this passed in Congress. The hell is this? So I read you this article today. Tomorrow everybody will forget it, and on it goes. And on it goes, day after day, unconstitutional act, piled on top of unconstitutional act, and nobody blinks. Nobody blinks. Now, I won't call this a coup, per se, but it's certainly not constitutional republicanism. What happened to separation of powers? What happened to appropriation authorities? What happened to a federal budget? What will the think tanks say? What's their solution? Elect more Republicans? Well, I'm not against electing conservatives. They're the only fighters left. But let's not pretend that that's going to fix this. This is a systemic problem. We are unmoored from our Constitution. Here's another one. From the Washington Times, Valerie Richardson. On climate change, Obama and the EPA plan action without Congress. Well, how can he do that? Boulder, Colorado. EPA Chief Gina McCarthy said the Obama administration is finished waiting for Congress to act on climate change and plans to bypass the legislative branch in developing a federal response. We do not have separation of powers. in the traditional sense. Not only does Obama make these despotic allegations and charges, but now his cabinet does. Let me repeat this. Gina McCarthy, the new EPA chief, who got that position by confirmation with Republican support in the Senate, she said the Obama administration is finished waiting for Congress to act on climate change and plans to bypass the legislative branch in developing a federal response. I mean, this sounds like Castro and Castro's people. Ms. McCarthy, who was confirmed last month as EPA administrator, cited Obama's June 25 speech at Georgetown University. So, she's citing her boss's speech, the imperial president's speech, as the constitutional basis for bypassing Congress. Does it get any worse than this? Oh, Mark, your proposals are radical. I have no radical proposals. This is radicalism, staring you right in the face. She said, Obama gave what I really think is a most remarkable speech by a president of the United States. Essentially, he said that it's time to act, and he said he wasn't going to wait for Congress, but that he had administrative authorities and that it was time to start utilizing those more effectively and in a more concerted way. In other words, a more aggressive dictatorship. We're going to do this year, next year, the following year, until people understand these are not scary things to do. These are actions we can all do. They're actions that benefit everybody, that will grow the economy. They're actions that will protect the health and safety of individuals. Really. The president's climate action plan has come under criticism from Republicans led by Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who said in June the plan amounted to a war on coal and a war on jobs. It's tantamount to kicking the ladder out from beneath the feet of any American struggling in today's economy, Mitch McConnell. That's it. Mitch McConnell made a statement. He's done, never to be revisited again. Over and out. That's it. Now, you and I suffer from this. That's the answer. Make a statement. That's the answer. Elect more Republicans. Come on, folks. Come on. This isn't working. It's not going to fly anymore. In 2009, Congress rejected a bill to establish a cap-and-trade system designed to discourage greenhouse gas emissions. The measure known as the Waxman-Markey bill, two left-wing loons, passed the House but was defeated in the Senate at the time when Democrats controlled both houses. Obama's plan comes after years of criticism from environmentalists who have faulted him for a lack of attention to global warming. And the plan includes reducing carbon pollution from power plants, accelerating green energy permitting, and increasing fuel economy standards. So there you go. There you go. We're going to bypass Congress and impose our will. The law's the law, except when it's not. Isn't that interesting? There's still time, folks. There's still time to reestablish constitutional republicanism. Not by listening to the ruling class and their disciples, either party. There's still time. It won't be easy. It is a daunting task ahead of us. It really is. And I've said again, it won't happen overnight. But we need to begin this discussion. A discussion that the ruling class does not want us to have. Folks, I'm prepared to take the slings and arrows, and I will. I'm prepared to deal with the rocks that will be thrown, and I will. If I'm the last man standing and I'm behind this microphone, I'm going to keep at it. Will you join me? Will you help me? I think you will.
Mark Levin.
Herein lies an example of another problem. CNN. Chris Christie wraps potential. First I thought it says rapes, but I knew it wasn't that. Chris Christie wraps potential 2016 rivals at Republican confab. Well, what did he say now? That was so brilliant, so compelling. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, I hope all of you Christie-crats are listening, planted himself firmly in the Republican Party's establishment wing. What, by the way, what does that mean, establishment wing? It means what I say it means. Status quo. That's what the establishment wing is. Status quo. So if you're happy with Congress, you're happy with how Obama conducts himself and the court and the bureaucracy, that's the establishment. Oh, I know. Every now and then they'll burp up a few platitudes. But in the end, that's who they are. They're very comfortable with what's going on. What they don't like is, in the Senate, they're in the minority. And they keep coming to us insisting that we have to put them in the majority. And if we don't agree with their candidates, they trash us, and they trash our candidates. You comfortable with doing this year after year, election cycle after election cycle? Till your time on this earth is over? Is that it? He planted himself, Christie did, firmly in the Republican Party's establishment wing today with a pugnacious speech. Is there any other speech from this guy? Mr. Obnoxious? Calling on his party to focus on pragmatism rather than ideology and crippling internal debates. That's right. What we need is just a good old-fashioned Republican dictator, focused on pragmatism, not on principle. Now, what's principle? We've talked about what establishment republicanism. What's principle? You know, little things like individual liberty, private property rights, you know, stuff like that. Don't focus on that. Stop squabbling. Focus on what's doable, what's practical. Some of Christie's remarks, he said, we are not a debating society. We are a political operation that needs to win. There you go. That's it. A political operation that needs to win, no principles. So stop talking about principles. So Chris Christie is just another mush Republican. That's what he is. Some of Christie's remarks, relayed to a reporter by Republican officials who attended the closed press event, were interpreted by many here as another jab at Rand Paul. It's not a jab at Rand Paul. It's a jab at conservatives. It's a jab at the Tea Party who initially made this man governor of New Jersey. And now he spends all his time trying to get the votes of liberals, the endorsement of liberals, because he takes Republicans and conservatives for granted. This is typical, and it's disastrous. This man couldn't even bring himself, he couldn't even muster the courage, despite his bravado, to sign the brief with 27 other governors and attorneys general challenging Obamacare. Because, truth be told, Christie supports it. He's a big government Republican. Oh, wow, he took on the teachers union. Really? So have I in litigation, and I don't remember Christie standing side by side with us. And he's a big man. I would have remembered it. Have you looked really at the financial record of New Jersey? New Jersey is Illinois, just as Illinois is California, just as California is Rhode Island. Well, he's better than Corzine. Yes, he is. And so's a hamster I saw at the pet shop the other day when I was buying my Barney dog food. Big deal. Says, I'm in the business to win. I don't know why you're in it. I'm in it to win. So there you go. He's in it to win. He's in it to make deals. No debate, no principles. There you go. Another loser. That's right. Nominate him, and Hillary Clinton becomes president should she run. Hillary Clinton, who's Barack Obama in a dress. I'll be right back.
You can call us now at 877-381-3811. And the Liberal contact number is 877-381-3811.
Listen to this story. I first heard this when I was in the car listening to WMAL in Washington. The Sun Gazette. It's a local newspaper apparently around here by Scott McCaffrey. The title is, Feds Ease Up on Stringent School Lunch Regulations. Now, keep in mind, Obama's on Martha's Vineyard stuffing his face with every kind of fried food that is available. Onion rings, French fries, all the rest of it. Slightly higher cafeteria prices, an increasing emphasis on locally sourced food, and a more robust roster of healthy options will be on tap at Arlington County for Arlington County students when they head back to class in September in Virginia. Prices of school lunches will increase a dime to $2.70 for elementary school students and $2.80 for those in secondary schools to keep the school meals program self-supporting, said Amy McCloskey, Director of Food and Nutritional Services for Arlington Public Schools. There will be a few new offerings in the school lunch rotation, including specialty side salads featuring, I don't even know what the hell that is. And we will continue to purchase local products whenever possible. Well, you know, Arlington County is not that far from the White House. Will they be purchasing products from Mrs. Clinton's organic garden? You know what I think, Mr. Producer? I think that organic garden is a cover-up for the growing of marijuana plants. We remember our great president was really into that at one point. Remember that? Maybe organic marijuana. Am I allowed to mention that? I mean, I'm not a rodeo clown or anything. The school lunch world was roiled over the past year by new federal regulations. So, first of all, here we have federal regulations reaching all the way in to cafeterias and local school systems, which are apparently incapable of determining how to feed their students, just like parents are incapable of it. Where does the federal government get the authority to set the menu for local schools? Answer, nowhere. What are we going to do about it? Nothing, right? Just whine about it. Maybe some think tank will issue a white paper. McCloskey in March went before the school board to acknowledge that the federal mandate had led to fewer students purchasing breakfasts and lunches. Hey, it's like the Obama jobs program. Fewer people getting jobs, or this one, the Obama health care program, fewer people affording health care. Seems to me everything Obama puts his hands on turns to crap. So we have fewer students purchasing breakfasts and lunches because the offerings mandated by the new rules didn't measure up. One example, school systems had to nix offering cheeseburgers since the combination of meat, bread, and cheese made them illegal under federal rules. Cheeseburgers, illegal under federal rules. Even the venerable peanut butter and jelly sandwiches had to be scaled back, leading to a student revolt. By the way, I lived on those things when I went to high school. I ate those every day. It's just, while Arlington didn't suffer as much as some other districts, the drop-off in student meal participation was as much as 40% throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. The good news, the new federal regulations have been sorted out, and we're pleased that we will have the opportunity to be more flexible with our daily options this year. Gee, I wonder what that means. The meals calendar for the first half of the year is available on the school system's website. Lunches will rotate on a 3-week schedule, with Fridays featuring the perennial favorite pizza, competing against a roster that includes Salisbury steak, chicken fajitas, and turkey Cuban sandwiches. Items available daily include deli sandwiches, peanut butter, jamwiches, and a variety of salads. As part of its healthy eating initiatives, the school system will continue Meatless Mondays. Among offerings on the first day of the week will be vegetarian chili, black bean burgers, stuffed shells of macaroni, and cheese. And a lot of flagellation going on there, Mr. Producer. Oh, yes. So, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are legal again in Arlington County. They'd been illegal along with cheeseburgers under federal rules, but they're back. Wonder if anybody was ever prosecuted for selling somebody a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the cafeteria, you know? We have Eric Holder, the Imperial Attorney General, at the Injustice Department, with his magic wand over there, eliminating certain federal sentencing requirements, again, without the benefit of congressional legislation, but what the hell? They can all join in the practice now. So we actually had a time when marijuana was in and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches were out. That's Obama's America, fundamental transformation. I want to address one other thing before we go to the callers. There's this persistent story out there that the Republican National Committee is prepared to have Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, and me moderate Republican debates. And I've been mentioned several times now. I've announced behind this microphone that I accept. And I'd particularly like to ask Chris Christie some questions. Let me be as clear as I can for Reince Priebus, or is it Rents, or is it Priebus? I accept. Give me your schedule. Otherwise, stop throwing my name around in your phony little ploy here. But I am prepared to be a moderator or one of the moderators. RNC Communications Director Sean Spicer brought me up last week. I'm being brought up again this week. I'm ready, willing, and able. In fact, you can call me on the air. 877-381-3811. I know you listen. I know all you boys and girls listen over there. I'm here. You made an oral offer. I accepted. That's an oral contract. I'm ready. I've agreed. And I'll waive Karl Rove's speaking fee of, what does he charge, $125,000 a speech? I'll do it for free. Let's take a call here, shall we? Ken, Fort Worth, Texas, the great WBAP. Go.
Hey, big howdy to you. I know you want a constitutional convention, correct?
No, I want a convention of states for the purpose of proposing amendments. That's not a constitutional convention. There's no such thing.
So you are against the Constitutional Convention?
All right, let me try. In the Constitution, you are not allowed to have a constitutional convention. You can have a convention of the states for the purpose of proposing amendments to the several states.
Fine.
What's your question, sir?
Well, my point of it is that back in 1988, there were 32 states calling for a constitutional convention with the balanced budget amendment ploy or ruse or whatever you want to call it. They needed 2 more states, correct?
Sir, this isn't Jeopardy. Just go ahead and make your point.
Okay, my point of it is, in 1988, we got Florida and Alabama withdraw the call for the balanced budget amendment for a constitutional convention. In 1988, the boys who wanted a constitutional convention hit a brick wall, and they're mad. And since 1988, you had Waco, Twin Towers.
Thank you for your call, sir. Oh, perfect caller. Perfect first caller. There he is. There he is. Let's continue, shall we? Let us go to Martha, Scranton, Pennsylvania, the great WTRW. Go.
Mark, thank you so much for being so brave, so courageous, and so intelligent in laying out your arguments for us.
Well, I don't know that I'm all those things, but thank you, Martha.
You are, and I pray for you that God protects you because you are doing God's work in saving our liberty.
Now, you think people are out to get me?
Let me put it this way. I think a lot of people are out to get many of us. But what saddens me, Mark, is that I tell people what you say, those who are not listening to your show, and try to inform them of things, and I get the most disheartening responses such as, at least in the Scranton area, such as, well, yeah, Hillary should have been president. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Anyhow, you get the point. And then others are, it's just too big a problem. When we get the next president, everything will be okay. And I'm just...
And by the way, that last point
is
a point that you'll hear if you ask. People have these seminars and these panels where they talk about federalism in Washington. Conservatives, conservative lawyers, conservative thinkers, and they're talking about federalism and where federalism is being killed and the federal government's out of control and federalism. And you bring up, Article 5, which is the epitome of federalism. It's quintessential federalism. And they go, I can't do that. No. Well, what do? Elect more people. And this is the point. Let me tell you something. Or I get a friend of mine saying, well, which state's going to start? Folks, we have to begin discussing this. We have to pass the word. The mindset in this country has been so perverted over time that there has to be an adjustment. And you have to do it. We all have to do it together. Otherwise, and don't be frustrated when you first engage people about it. Take your time and explain it. If they're a complete drone, don't start with them in the first place. But there's a lot of people out there who may find this aspirational, who may find this as hopeful, as welcoming. And so you never know. Go ahead, Martha.
You're right. As you're saying this, I feel excited. I almost feel like, Mark is right. It's like
you're not getting a tingle up your leg, are you?
It's like gradually changing a mindset and a perception. And also, people are not that educated. And they've forgotten, even if they once knew about the Constitution in any form, they've forgotten. And they listen to the nonsense that Obama says. And
well, listen to me. The reason I wrote this book, it's really only about 200 pages. It's in plain English, but it draws from our history. It's intended to be inspirational. It's intended to be hopeful. It's not a Pollyanna. It's substantive. It's serious. I wrote it so you can explain it and you can help explain it, or you can give it to people who you think need it. And you can go to the library and get it. You don't even have to purchase it. But, Martha, I have to go. I'll tell you what, Martha. I'm going to give you a copy of the Liberty Amendments, Restoring the American Republic. You're such a great caller. Don't hang up, okay? And good luck to you. The liberal media in this country really are out of control, and they're not interested in informing us. They're interested in deceiving us. I came across a website called liberalmediabs.com. Don't you love that? liberalmediabs.com. And that makes it painfully clear that the so-called news media don't report the news at all. They're really just trying to brainwash us with left-wing propaganda. They have two main goals: to destroy conservatism and to shove Obama's radical agenda down our throats. And like all good fanatics, they try not to let the truth get in their way. Take a minute and check out liberalmediabs.com. And they'll have a little quiz on there so you can see how good you are distinguishing facts from liberal media fiction. As conservatives, it's critical for us to know this stuff. Plus, it's fun to see how many questions you can get right. And if you answer enough correctly, you can even win a prize. liberalmediabs.com. Check it out. It has glaring examples of just how radically leftist the media are and how they're nothing more than mouthpieces for the Obama administration. So do check it out. Check it for yourself. It's liberalmediabs.com. And then forward it to your friends, too. That's liberalmediabs.com.
Mark Levin.
Matter of fact, I'm in the mood for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich right now, aren't you guys? Peanut butter and jelly sandwich on white bread. No, just kidding. Not really, but I have to say that. All right, good white bread, like whole wheat white bread. Have you ever seen that stuff? Well, it says it on the package, so it must be right, because the federal government would prosecute that company if it was wrong. By the way, you ever watch these commercials? They have senior citizens, what do they call them? Not Medicare police, but they're like informants. I'm watching, all of a sudden these senior citizens are popping up saying, I'm part of the Medicare, and I'm going, what are they? They're now brown shirts who are senior citizens and checking out Medicare? What is this? One more story, may I? This one was important. A friend sent it to me. It's a few days old. Still important. Houston, Texas. A woman opened fire on a group of robbers at a local Denny's restaurant, and I happen to like Denny's. At around 4 a.m., a man who does not want to be identified said his brother was robbed by six men with guns at a Denny's off the Gulf Freeway in southeast Houston. I don't know if it was random or someone set him up because he got his own label, said the victim's brother. I don't know what that means, got his own label. His brother's wife was in the restroom at the time, but when she exited the restroom, she saw the group of suspected robbers. Police said that's when she pulled out her gun and shot at them. She said she came out of the restroom and saw my brother on the floor. That's when she started doing what she got to do. She got a license, and she'll do anything to protect her kids and my brother, he said. Police said there was a shootout, but it's not known how many shots were fired at the time. However, police said the gunshots did hit cars in the parking lot. No bystanders or customers were injured. The group of suspects fled the scene. The married couple said they are still shook up, but their family said they're glad they made it out alive. Quote, self-defense saved my brother's life, he said. According to police, the robbers got away with jewelry. Yes, that's Texas. If that had been, say, Maryland, with Governor O'Stupid over there, he would have just thrown up your arms and hoped that you weren't pistol whipped or shot between the eyes. It's different in Texas. It's different in Virginia. It's different in some of these states that still respect life and liberty and self-defense. It's different in Nevada and Florida. You know what? I don't know if I should say this, but I will. I love the people of Maryland, particularly those of you who listen to this program. You're living in a state of despotism in that state. But that said, you don't have to. If you can, you can get out of there. When I first moved to this area, I told my family, I am not moving to Maryland. It's a beautiful state. And God knows they're constantly building roads there. I don't know. It's the same road over and over. We're repaving. We're widening. We're narrowing. We're fixing the sign over and over and over and over again, right over the Potomac. It's just endless. But that's another story. Who keeps texting me while I'm on the air? It's like, anyway, so I said I'm not going to live there because the government sucks. And it's only gotten worse. And it's true. But now it's a question of survival. They have hideous tax rates. They disarm their population. I will not live in a state that disarms me or so thoroughly confiscates my wealth. And that's the great thing about federalism, by the way. You can pick up your ass and move. Most of us can anyway. Problem is, a lot of the leftists that live in these dark blue states, after destroying those states, they move in the red states, and then they try to destroy our states. Maybe there should be a law against that. I'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. This is the Power Hour, Hour 3. I'm Mark Levin. The number, 877-381-3811. 877-381-3811. Two quick things, then back to it. I want to thank Cal Thomas today for his magnificent column in support of the Liberty Amendments. All these folks are going to take a little bit of heat from the ruling class and their disciples, but that's okay. There's a time at which you got to stand up. I got a beautiful handwritten note from Glenn Beck. And it couldn't be nicer. And we've both decided that the situation in the nation is far too dire to not be allied with each other. To be, talking to each other. Doesn't mean we have to agree with each other on everything. Nobody does that. But his heart is in the right place. He's very sharp, as is his staff. And I'm very positive about this. And if there's anything I can ever do to advance the cause of liberty, I think I'm going to do it, and I think this is certainly one of the things we can do. The situation is such where we have to unite. Again, we don't have to agree on every single thing. That's not the point. The framers didn't agree on every single thing. Your parents don't agree on every single thing. So that's just silly. But I'm going to write him back, and he put in his letter a number of nice things. And he also said that anything he and his company and the Blaze can do to promote the Liberty Amendments, he wanted to do it. Because he feels that here we are, we're at the precipice, and we need to get behind this and other things. And I just felt it was a beautiful note, and I just want to publicly say thank you. And I will be writing you back. So give peace a chance, folks. It works. Ralph Peters in the New York Post has a very, very important column. Obama has made a real mess of things, as he has in our own country, but in foreign policy, too. And we talked about this the other week. He has zero credibility. And he came out today making demands and statements again when he's lost all credibility in the Middle East and pretty much everywhere else. And I believe his comments today are eventually going to push the Egyptians into the hands of the Russians. And people forget that this country, Egypt, was once in the hands of the Russians, allied with the Russians. And it was Sadat who eventually broke free of them and allied himself with the United States. Nasser was allied with the Soviet Union. And so now we're supposed to hate the Egyptian military. Well, I don't hate the Egyptian military. I hate the Muslim Brotherhood. Let me read this to you from Ralph Peters, because if you listen to the news today and Obama today, you're not going to get any of this. Ralph Peters is a pretty sharp guy, a retired lieutenant colonel. And he says, what do we want the future of Egypt to look like? A flawed hybrid democracy or a Sunni Muslim version of Iran? And based on his bluster yesterday about events on the Nile, Secretary of State John Kerry prefers the latter, a version of Iran. And based on his bluster today, I might add, so does Obama. And Kerry's remarks must have had White House approval. You bet they did, Mr. Peters. In full outrage mode, America's most famous windsurfer castigated the Egyptian authorities, insisting the Muslim Brotherhood had a right to peaceful protest, quote-unquote. Apparently, peaceful means armed with Kalashnikovs, killing policemen, kidnapping and torturing opponents, turning mosques into prisons, attacking Christians, and burning Coptic churches. Has this administration ever stood up for the Christians in the Middle East? Maybe they have. If they have, it's really a one-off or a two-off, because it certainly hasn't been a persistent campaign. Has this administration ever stood up for Christians in the Middle East? What is it? The whole Middle East belongs to the Arabs and the Muslims? So the birthplace of Judaism, the birthplace of Christianity, is only the birthplace of Islam? No, I don't think so. Now, these Muslim Brotherhood protesters rejected all offers of compromise and all demands to disperse. The interim government's response was heavy-handed, but the Muslim Brothers chose violent resistance, using women and children as shields, a tactic typical of Islamist terrorists. Do we really need to have sympathy for the devil? With its plundering, fickle, late-in-the-day support for whoever appeared to be gaining the upper hand. Blundering, I should have said. The Obama administration has managed the remarkable feat of alienating every faction in Egypt. And it's a sorry day when an American administration abets religious totalitarianism, as this White House did when the quote-unquote democratically elected Morsi regime tried to Islamize Egypt's government and society for keeps. There was indeed a coup, but not all coups involve tanks. But the real coup came after Egypt's premature, badly flawed election when Morsi and the Brotherhood excluded all non-brothers from political process, curtailed media freedoms and jailed journalists, attacked Christians, and rushed toward an Islamist state that the majority of Egyptians did not want. Well, Obama doesn't care about that. He doesn't even care about what a majority of Americans want. Tens of millions of Muslims took to the streets to protest the Brotherhood's plunge toward tyranny. Only after attempts to persuade an unrepentant Morsi to compromise failed did the military move against the regime, and the people cheered. Yet our breathtakingly inept ambassador backed the Morsi regime right to the end. That isn't diplomacy, it's idiocy. But all you have to do to create witless panic in Washington is cry military coup. Well, sometimes, regrettably, a military is all that stands between a population and deadly and anti-American fanaticism. Despite yesterday's bloodshed, would we really prefer a return to the Muslim Brotherhood's rule? Stuff the political correctness and get real, writes Ralph Peters. Boy, is he right on or what? Is the Egyptian military an ideal ally? No, but it's a far better bet than Obama's support of the Muslim Brotherhood. The danger now is that the administration and NAIFs in Congress will cut aid to the Egyptian military and curl up into a snit. I believe Obama just did that. That would only make the Egyptians, who want a reasonably free, generally tolerant, and ultimately democratic Egypt, even madder at us. And Egypt's the most important of the Arab allies. It's the most important Arab country. Do we really need to make additional enemies in the region of moderates and secularists in a quest to be fair to fanatics? Official figures allow 275 dead in yesterday's violence. I think the Drudge Report now has it at 600, while the Muslim Brotherhood claims more than 2,000. The latter numbers preposterous. You can't hide that many corpses from prying journalists, but the reality is probably somewhere in between. Well, he was right. Regrettably, did this occur? Yes. Inevitable? Also yes, thanks to the Brotherhood's intolerance and intransigence. It's time to get over ourselves, says Ralph Peters, our narcissistic belief that not only we can but must decide the destinies of Middle Eastern populations is destructive. We can at times play constructively on the margins, but we're not even good at that. The Obama administration needs a new foreign policy motto, first do no harm. And we need to base our policies on our long-term interests, not on here and gone headlines. The enemy of the Egyptian people and the American people is the same, Islamist fanaticism, and defeating radical extremists isn't a smiley-face business. Well, that sounds like me. When someone insists that he knows what God demands everybody must do, you can either submit or resist. Egyptians chose to resist, and the Muslim Brotherhood, not the Egyptian military, chose blood. So let's get that straight, ladies and gentlemen, because you ain't going to get it straight from this president, and you ain't going to get it straight from the media. And when we return, I will prove it to you.
Mark Levin.
Where'd all the good music go? All right. Anyway, we have these debates here about what to play. Anyway, So Obama is in Martha's Vineyard at his chalet, stuffing his face with fried food. But he took enough time to go to the microphone and make some demands. Cut one, go.
We believe that the state of emergency should be lifted.
In Egypt.
That a process of national reconciliation should begin.
Stop. So here they are in the middle of this civil war again, and he announces from his chalet at Martha's Vineyard that the state of emergency should be lifted and there should be national reconciliation. It's like a homeless person making an announcement, on a soapbox, and nobody cares and nobody listens, and on they go. Go ahead.
That all parties need to have a voice in Egypt's future.
Stop. No, they don't. No, they don't. Why should terrorists have a voice in Egypt's future, like the Muslim Brotherhood? What is this sympathy this president and this administration has for the Muslim Brotherhood? Now, all parties don't have a voice in Egypt's future, or America's future, or anybody else's future. When that prior regime distorted the election, stole it, they probably didn't have, voter ID over there. What with all the clothing over your head? And then tried to destroy the government from within. I don't remember Obama leaving his chalet then and making a speech. Go ahead.
That the rights of women and religious minorities should be respected, and that commitments must be kept to pursue transparent reforms of the Constitution and democratic elections of a parliament.
Stop. So our president, who says if Congress doesn't act, he will, whose own EPA nitwit said they're going to bypass Congress, he's really in no position to be talking about Constitution and democratic elections, is he? I'm serious about this. The general there should get up and say, hey, I'll tell you what. You appointed people without your Senate's approval. I'm just doing the same. Hey, you said if your Congress doesn't act, you're going to act. Well, I'm doing the same. If you don't agree with a law, you ignore it, rewrite it, change it, whatever. I'm just doing the same. What's your problem? You award your cronies, you call them green jobs. We award our cronies too. Go ahead.
We believe that the state of emergency should be lifted.
That's process. Okay. We don't need to hear the beginning of that. I'm only going to play one more of the president because I know him speaking is like fingernails on a chalkboard to most of you. Cut 2, go.
America cannot determine the future of Egypt. That's a task for the Egyptian people. We don't take sides with any particular party or political figure.
Stop. Really? Folks, do you realize how scary this is? You have secularists. That doesn't mean they're not religious people. Secularists when it comes to government. In other words, they don't want a totalitarian state run by religious fanatics, like the Muslim Brotherhood. And we don't take sides in that, folks. Really. Actually, we did. We supported Morsi. And the ambassador supported Morsi, as Ralph Peters said, to the bitter end. So, of course, we take sides. We take the wrong side. It's like Syria. These same-sex idiot senators, Graham and McCain, want us to support the rebels. Well, it just so happens the rebels include Al-Qaeda. I should have added another amendment in the Liberty Amendments. It should have been like an IQ test, that every person who's elected before they get sworn in, there has to be an IQ test. And you have to have an IQ that exceeds the score in most baseball games. Like over 5 or 12 or something like that. Otherwise, you won't be seated and there'll be a special election. Then we could rid ourselves of the same-sex senators like McCain and Graham. Go ahead.
I know it's tempting inside of Egypt to blame the United States or the West.
Stop right there. See, they hate Obama. They've been marching around with signs and masks, much like the rodeo clown. Not because they're racist. Because they can't stand him. He backed the wrong side. Go ahead.
Another outside actor for what's gone wrong. We've been blamed by supporters of Morsi.
All right, stop. You sound like a wimp. You sound like a wimp. You're not liked there. You're hated there. Because you backed the wrong side. You didn't back the people who really wanted liberty and some kind of democracy. You backed the Islamo-Nazis. You know. So I just thought I would clear that up. And so the president is, his foreign policy is a joke. It's dangerous, and I believe he's going to push the Egyptians right into the hands of the Russians. How much time do I have there, Mr. Producer? Well, okay, Phil, Seattle, Washington, the great KVI. How are you, sir?
Hi, Mark. Thanks for taking my call. I just want to say it's an honor to speak with you, sir.
Thank you.
I grew up in this, you know what the Northwest is like. It's a very liberal area, and I grew up and was indoctrinated that way. And
liberal and wet, as I recall.
Oh, absolutely. And, I grew up and my eyes were opened, and you have been one of the people who's really helped to, clear my head. And I've read your book, Ameritopia. I've read Liberty and Tyranny, and I can't wait to get my hands on the Liberty Amendment.
First of all, I know you wanted to make another point, and it's an important point, so don't hang up. I'm going to carry you over the bottom of the hour, and we'll get right to the point. It's a very interesting call, as you'll find out if you stay with me, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back.
Is that a copy of the Constitution you've got, or you're just happy to see Mark Levin? Call him now at 877-381-3811.
Back to Phil, Seattle, KVI. Go right ahead, sir.
Okay, Mark. So anyway, what I wanted to tell you was my representative here in this area, I guess I thought I lucked out because, like I said, I was born and raised an indoctrinated liberal, but you and other people have helped clear my head up, and your books are great. Can't wait to see the newest one. But I thought I had lucked out because my representative is Republican Dave Reichert, one of the few in Washington. However, this guy who used to be a King County sheriff, law enforcement officer, he was out on the streets in the WTO riots back in 1999, arresting people and always branded himself as tough on law enforcement, things like that. He's gone total rhino on us. And this guy appeared on the John Carlson show a couple weeks ago, early in the morning, and basically admitted that he's probably going to vote for amnesty, and he's not going to try to use the continuing resolution to defund Obamacare. I mean, this guy is bending over and just backstabbing all of us. And on top of that, this whole 5-week recess, he's refusing to meet with all of his constituents. And I heard what you said about, that there was a memo going around telling these rhinos to go back home during the recess and campaign as anti-Washington conservatives and try to avoid meeting with the public. And this is the first recess that he's not holding any town halls meetings. He's not meeting with the public. I called up his office to meet with the guy. You have to fill out a form that states why you want to meet with him, all your personal information, and send it back to them, and they might get back to you.
What a representative republic. So the body in the federal government that is supposed to be closest to the people, direct popular elected officials, the guy won't even hold a town hall meeting in his district because he's hiding from the people. And yet he'll be reelected because the Republican establishment will protect him. They will give him money. They will give him, an army of volunteers. They will do everything they can to defeat any challengers. And that's what I mean. I mean, so what's the recourse here? To keep begging the guy to have town hall meetings?
Well, no, Mark. The only recourse we have, in the long run, is really what you've been talking about, and it's just why I'm really so excited to get my hands on your book. My next paycheck comes in, I'm going to go down and pick it up. But I tell you, we can't rely on the establishment anymore. They redistricted this guy's district here to make it even safer for him. They gave him this little tiny sliver west of the mountains near Seattle, and then it goes way over to eastern Washington. and he probably thinks he's safe. He doesn't have to worry about primaries. He thinks he's got it in the bag, and he doesn't care about us anymore. And
they gerrymandered the guy and protected him.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what, Phil.
No recourse. Go ahead.
All right, my friend, I'm going to send you a signed copy of the Liberty Amendments so we can restore the American Republic. Don't hang up. Don't hang up. You don't have to wait till your next paycheck. Let us go to James, Detroit, Michigan, on the Mark Levin app, the greatest app of apps. Go right ahead.
I'm apt to love it more than I love what's going on with you, Mark.
Oh, thank you. That's an APT.
You may remember I called a couple of weeks ago when Diane Sebelius was talking about her ad budget for the Affordable Care Act.
Oh, yes. How are you?
Well, I was kind of perplexed because I thought I made this major faux pas on national radio with you in regards to the $1.4 million when it was 1.4 cents per person. And I realized as I took the calculator that I used, flipped it over, and on the back of it, it said Detroit Public School System. I bought it at a garage sale a couple of years ago. Totally forgot where it came from.
Very
and now
good.
I know it gave me the answer of $1.4 million.
All right. I get it.
But the reason I called, when I was in high school, our government class, we tore apart the Constitution. It was a daily study. And I remember for months now how the only way when you have a corrupt president and vice president, a corrupt Congress and Senate, sold out, a Supreme Court that won't act, a hollowed-out military that has been basically neutered like a dog from taking actions against the president, it's up to the people themselves. There's no other way left but the Fifth Amendment and this.
No, Article 5. Did we lose him? Oh my goodness! I'm sorry, James. Try to call back. It's not the Fifth Amendment, by the way. It's Article 5. It's funny. Mr. Call Screener said some fellow was calling offline and said, "Where do I find Article 5 in the Constitution?" You find it at Article 5, actually. Just Google it. It'll be there. All right. Sorry about that, pal. Ben, Orange County, California. Another caller on the great Mark Levin app. Go. Hello, Ben. Fellas, what's going on? Do we lose another caller? Let's try Don, our buddy Don in Lake Ronkonkoma, WABC. Is Don there?
Mark, how you doing?
All right, how are you?
Oh, very good. Congrats on being
Don
number
is
one.
a good friend.
Oh, yeah. We've been friends for years, Mark.
Yep.
I want to congratulate you for being number one on Amazon, and I'm confident that your book, The Liberty Amendments, is going to break records in the weeks to come.
Well, time will tell, and if we can spread the word, we shall see. Go right ahead.
I'm confident of it, Mark. Hey, listen, regarding the George Will article that you led off your program, if Obama does not live up to his constitutional oath, which he has done repeatedly, and the congressional leaders that we have, knowing this full well, do nothing about it, also, aren't they also delinquent in their obligations to protect and defend the Constitution? And shouldn't they be punished as well?
Well, they can't be punished. All they can be is defeated. You can't impeach members of Congress. They can expel each other.
Right. I know you can't make them bring charges or special counsel.
Yeah, and there's really no other way to get at them except during the election cycle.
But we can call them out on it, Mark.
Amen to that.
You know. And,
matter of fact, what I would like people to do is, whether it's a member of Congress or whether it is a conservative a columnist or a conservative on TV or at some think tank or something, and they go on and on about how the federal government's out of control, about the unconstitutional acts of the president or the Supreme Court or what have you. I want you to follow up with them, Don, and everybody else, and ask them, now what are you going to do about it? Yep. And their answer is going to be, well, just vote. Now, we just had the prior caller who told us they voted for a Tea Party conservative who's now not a Tea Party conservative. I'm not saying give that up, but I'm saying just voting isn't enough when there's a huge disconnect between the Constitution and how our federal government functions.
Well, that's why those town hall meetings are so important, because that's a direct way you can challenge them with people, like-minded people with you, you know?
Well, I think so, and I think you ought to take my book in there and then wave it around a little bit, not hit him with it.
I plan to do that, Mark. I plan to do that right after I see you Saturday. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, my friend. So Don will be at Book Review in Huntington, Long Island. I hope many of you will be. That's Saturday. Sunday, we will be at Bookends in Ridgewood, New Jersey. Hope to see many of you there. Saturday the 24th. That is the Saturday after this Saturday. We will be at Tyson's Corner, Virginia, at Barnes & Noble. Hope to see many of you there. And then we're going to be at the Reagan Library on September 7th. Even though the place is sold out, you can still get your book signed, I think, if you contact them. And I'd love to see you and meet you as well. I think that's the full card. That's it, 4 of them. I was flirting with one more, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. And I know I get a lot of people on the social sites, and I do apologize. Ohio and Texas and Missouri and Florida and California and on and on and on. If I have to do that, then I can't be a radio host. But I have done something for you, those of you who cannot attend. I spent a long 3 or 4 day weekend signing books for you. And you can go to Premier Collectibles and just Google Premier Collectibles and the Liberty Amendments, and you can go there and get your signed copy. And not only that, they have it in a beautiful leather case if you want to get that. I know it's the middle of August, but Christmas will come, Hanukkah will come, holidays come and go, birthdays too. As I recall, the other day they told me they're sold out. A third of them have already sold out, and I haven't even been talking about them that much. So if you're considering doing it, then you might want to do it, because you remember my dad's book, George Washington, The Crossing. They sold out fairly quickly, the signed versions. Okay, Mike, Blue Springs, Missouri, the great WCMO. Go.
Good evening, Mark. On various occasions, you've invited your listeners to call in with any ideas they have in regards to taking our country back. I think we should affect the money flow of the media and their sponsors, and we could do this in conjunction with your plan regarding Article 5. And I think we'd see some...
All right, I've already lost you. We could do what?
Okay. Affect the pocketbook of the media and their sponsors.
Of the media?
Yes. By not dealing with their sponsors. Well,
we don't need a constitutional amendment to do that.
Pardon me? I know. That's what I'm saying. But the media is going to, correct me if I'm wrong, the media is going to be one of your biggest roadblocks in regards to this Article 5 thing. They're going to come out and tell the people, oh, this is a bad thing, so on and so forth.
But our goal, let me just tell you this. Okay. My goal, my hope is over time, hopefully in my lifetime, we're going to go over the heads of these people. I mean, we can't control the media and control the opposition.
Boycotting, we couldn't?
What's that? Well, I mean, you can do whatever you want as an individual. I'm not into boycotts.
No, I understand that. I'm talking about...
All right, thank you for your call. I don't know what else to say. I'm going round and round here. Sir, if you want to boycott somebody, boycott them. I mean, how many movements are we going to have here at once? I'm sorry, I was getting frustrated. I didn't know how. I keep answering the question. Okay, I don't mean that. I mean this. I don't mean. Okay, I apologize, but I don't get it. I mean, you don't need a constitutional amendment to boycott anybody. There's not a constitutional amendment right now that I'm aware of that's going to stop the media from doing what it's doing. I'm not seeking to do that. The whole point of this process is to bypass the ruling class. That doesn't just include those who are elected to office or those who serve in the bureaucracy. It includes the media and academia and the rhinos and all the rest. That's the brilliance of Article 5 and what the framers did. Maybe I'm not explaining myself clearly enough. I'm trying to. Ancestry.com. It's hard to find all the details of your family story. Documents get misplaced, relatives mix up dates, or may no longer be here to share their stories. That's why I use TryAncestry.com to uncover these missing details. And with TryAncestry.com, I found the date my great-grandfather arrived in New York, the name of his ship, and the length of his voyage to a new life in America. These are details we didn't know, but we were able to find at tryancestry.com. I want you to go to tryancestry.com and see what you can discover for 14 days free. And while you're there, you need to check out Ancestry DNA. It's at its lowest price ever, and the results will amaze you. I did it. I love the detail on where my ancestors once lived and continuous updates, and I get these updates for free along the way. It's really a fascinating little package they sent you and a process they go through. Visit tryancestry.com and start your 14 days free and order your Ancestry DNA kit today while the price is at its lowest. Visit tryancestry.com. That's tryancestry.com.
Mark Levin.
I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm the host or something, but this show ends way too fast for me. It really does. There's so much more to get into. But there's always tomorrow, isn't there? Frank, Memphis, Tennessee, the great WKIM, WKIM. Go.
Mark, what a pleasure to talk to you again.
Thank you, sir.
I'm kind of off topic. I don't know what you were talking about. I was just got back in my truck here, but I was going to convey an incident just happened to me because of you.
Guys, what's happening with our phones? He was just clicked off, right? Is Frank still there? Is Frank still there or not? Now I'm talking to myself. Is Frank still there or not? Okay, let's go to Brian, Springfield, Illinois, the Mark Levin app. Go. Let's try Kenneth, Terre Haute, Indiana, the great WIBQ. Go. Our phone system is dead. Well, just as well it's at the end of the show, right? So, sorry, folks. Now, will you guys do me a favor before you run home after the program? Yeah, let the folks at Cumulus know that our phone system isn't working. Okay, because it is what we call a news talk show. All right, we'll cover some more of the news part. I wanted to talk about this anyway, the Huffington Compost. Add a former Republican president's daughter to the list of supporters for a Hillary Clinton presidential run. This is the Bush family. In an upcoming interview with People magazine, George W. Bush's daughter Barbara said she'd like to see the unbelievably accomplished, quote-unquote, Hillary Clinton enter the 2016 presidential race, CNN reported. And according to the Hill newspaper, Bush's interview with People will appear in the August 26 issue. Oh, I'll be waiting for that one. When asked if she would vote for Clinton, Bush wasn't as certain, saying she didn't know who she'd be running against. Yeah, maybe that Jeb. That would be a close one. Would this be the same Bush family that trashed Sarah Palin? Grandma Bush? Talking about how she's not qualified and so forth. But, of course, Hillary Clinton says the younger Barbara Bush is. I would say a little confused, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs there. And there's a great piece in PJ Media. I probably won't have a time to do it justice, by Roger L. Simon. End the civil rights movement, he says. End the civil rights movement now. Shoot the sucker and put it and us out of its misery. It's a relic of the 1960s, about as relevant as bell-bottom trousers. When we are debating Oprah Winfrey's right to buy a $35,000 purse, or whether Barack Obama's dog should be flown to Martha's Vineyard in the canine's own private state-of-the-art military transport, you know it's finished or should be. It's also time for the NAACP and the Black Caucus to close up shop. They're dinosaurs from another era, making life miserable for the very people they're intended to help. Black unemployment is at record levels during the administration of the first black president, and that horrible situation is aided and abetted by those organizations. They're determined to preserve the image of black people as victims, an insulting, self-fulfilling prophecy. What was once a solution has become the problem. Affirmative action should also be flushed down the toilet with the civil rights movement. It contributes to the same syndrome of victimhood, simultaneously driving our society, which is divided enough already, into classes. The race card is a perfect example of this division and why this movement should be extinguished. Anybody who plays the race card in our country today is less than pond scum. It's become the 21st century equivalent of accusing someone of witchcraft in 17th century Salem. This is a great piece by Roger Simon at PJ Media. Anyone who uses the race card should be considered a pariah automatically. It's almost always projection. Black and brown people, above all, would profit from the end of the civil rights movement. We already have strong civil rights legislation. If anyone breaks the law, prosecute them. Excellent piece. We will link to it as well as the others. Ladies and gentlemen of America, thank you for listening. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, and emergency personnel. And we salute the technicians and engineers who will fix my damn phone system. I'll see you tomorrow, America. I'm Mark Levin.